Hello and welcome to ScreenHour with me, Kieran.
And me, Mikey.
And in this episode, we're going to be talking about Martin McDonagh's recent film called The Banshees of Inisherin.
Yeah, Banshees of Inisherin.
I thought it was Inisherin. Inisherin. Yeah, he did a play called The Lieutenant of Inishmore, which I performed at A level, I think it was. I did a monologue from Padraig, and yeah, that's really the first time Martin McDonagh came on my radar, to be fair. And I haven't seen In Bruges, and I know our friends Jimmy and Dan, who you went to go see it with, who were potentially going to join us on the podcast, but like, I don't know, time slips away from us. But yeah, because they watched In Bruges and they were like, yeah, we want to go see the Banshees. So
In Bruges is like, I really like In Bruges, but they both really really find it funny. And like, that's what I think. That's what his style is. His style is like dark humor and really good written dialogue. Like,
yeah, well, it's very sort of dry, deadpan humor that if you sort of don't get it, you'll miss it. You know, you got to be paying attention constantly to hear all the little nuances and all the different jokes.
yeah, I don't think I don't think it's incredibly like sophisticated or whatever, but that doesn't pull away from how great the writing is, how great like just the little bits of dialogue are.
Oh no, I'm not saying you need to be, Stephen Hawking to understand the film. I just mean that there's a lot of real sort of sly sort of looks or comments that if you didn't pay attention, you would miss that joke because there's lots of little jokes in there.
Yeah, exactly. So the premise of this film is like a lot of his other ones are like, I don't know, it's pretty it's pretty weird. It's it's set in 1923 on the Irish island of Inisherin or Inisherin, however we choose to pronounce it,
In a
and
sharing.
it's essentially
So it's like Inish and then Erin.
yeah, exactly.
Inish Erin.
So it's about two friends who just suddenly fall out, or well, not so much two friends as the majority of the film is put is how one friend falls out with another and how they explore that friendship.
Yeah, why they fell out, and that is literally the plot. That's all. That's it.
It mostly revolves around how bleak the island is and how like there's a civil war going on at the time, and there's a host of supporting characters which go with it, which like are standout like performances and standout interesting characters in themselves. But it mostly revolves around Colin Farrell's character and Domhnall Gleeson's character. Sorry, not Domhnall
Brendan.
Gleeson. Sorry, that's his son, Brendan Gleeson.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically Mad Eye Moody. He's Moody. He's Colin Farrell.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so as Kieran mentions, I watched it. I watched it with my friend, with our friends Jimmy and Dan, and Jimmy in particular, and Dan to the great was saying, like, not to speak on their behalf too much, especially because they're not here, but they literally said how boring it was. And
Yeah, they blamed me for letting them to go and see it. They were like, "You saw it before us, and you still let us go and watch it. What kind of friend are you?"
yeah, that's exactly what they said.
But I respectfully disagree. It's I know it won't be to everyone's taste. Like I know my dad wouldn't enjoy watching it, but I know my mum would. It's I don't know. It's just a very slow sort of methodical film. It doesn't you can you can tell it was written by a playwright because it would easily perform on stage.
It would, but I suppose a lot. I agree with that, but I suppose that doesn't justify how bad some of the pacing is, and also how it's just.
So I didn't struggle too much with the pacing at all, to be honest, because there wasn't a time where I was like, "Oh, my ass cheeks are a bit, I need to move around on the cinema seat," or "Oh, what time is it? This is going on a bit now." I was just enjoying the journey because I didn't see anything leading up to it. I didn't watch trailers or nothing. I mean, I never tend to with anything we talk about, to be honest. I hardly ever watch anything going into the cinema because I like going in knowing nothing. And I literally could not have known any less going in to see this. And then it was nice to explore, to understand like where this story's going and what's going to happen towards the end. And I quite like, not to go spoilerish, but I quite like how it sort of goes a bit more sinister towards the end. Because it's kind of, you don't really expect it because you think it's going to be quite more of a sort of close to home, sort of normal sort of film, but then it goes a little, yeah.
No, but I don't know, like a lot of Kieran's like really big boy potential. So I won't watch China because I don't spoil it. But like, I think it's their mess up and their fuck up if they put like a lot of comedies, like whether you think this is a comedy or not, it is a dark comedy. Is they put all the best bits in the trailers? There's literally like there's other good, really great dialogue scenes in,
Yeah.
and which makes you crease. But like I'd say like 40% of them are in the trailer.
Yeah, and that's not just on this film, that's on like all comedy films.
Yeah, it's not all, but yeah,
But well, not comedy films, but all like the best jokes are in the trailer.
exactly like that. Yeah, but, like they tried to put the best joke in there so it teases you, so it gets you in. But it's, I don't know. I feel like it could have some characters which are interesting, not to take away from the two characters who are feuding, or one's fell out with Colin, Brendan Gleeson's fell out with Colin. But there's some interesting characters like Colin Farrell's sister and the village idiot character. They could have had those two could have had time on their own as scenes to not take the light away from them, but they're like just more interesting characters.
Yeah, thinking about it now, I think the only time there wasn't Colin Farrell or Brendan Gleeson on screen was when Barry Keoghan was talking with Colin Farrell's sister. That's the only time I can think that either one of them weren't on the screen.
That's the only time, and that's a great scene in itself.
Yeah.
I would have, as much as I like Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, I would have liked to see a like film of Barry Keoghan's character, like Dominic.
I don't know. I think we got enough of him. I mean, I didn't agree with how his story concluded or how it, progressed. But I felt like we got more than enough from him than we actually, then I don't, I wouldn't be asked about seeing more from his character.
The trouble with it is like, I don't know, because I know you really like it, but the elements which are good aren't explored enough, like, and then it just and it also leads you to think something's going to happen, and then shows that thing just doesn't happen, or whether that's me interpreting it in that way or whatever. And we get onto that bit in spoilers. What I would say is if you do like his work, watch it, and if you like I heard something like it was about work, to be fair, or something the other week, but they said change is as good as a rest. And they were saying about obviously what somebody did, like someone was having a week off, but like to babysit essentially, whatever. But I think that goes for films. Honestly, it's a different type of film, and like Kieran said, it is more like a play in a lot of ways, and it's definitely like something different. Like, and if you like it, you probably love it. But I don't know. Despite saying that, I only like a few elements of it.
I mean, it's not my favorite film ever. No, but is it the worst film ever? No, right. So it's right there in the middle. But I did enjoy it. I wouldn't pay to see it again in the cinema. Would I recommend it to people? I wouldn't recommend it to someone I didn't know. I'd have to know them, know their film tastes, and then be like, oh, you would enjoy this. Because it is a good film, but it's a very much an acquired taste, I feel. because
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that.
I mean, you said that some things that it built to, it didn't then actually come to fruition. But I kind of liked that because you think it's going somewhere, but then it goes in a different direction because it's very much sort of it's trying to be more realistic in its approach to things of how life would have been back in 19. I thought it was 1929. You said 1923. I'm pretty sure it's 29.
It's 23. It says on the calendar.
Unless I thought, I don't know, I've forgotten now. But yeah, but yeah, it's it just shows how mundane life was back then. That all there was is you'd pot around, do your job. In Colin Farrell's case, it was milking his cows. He'd go to the corner shop, get his couple of pennies, and then he'd be off the pub and having a pint every night. You could argue people still do that today, but yeah, there's no cinemas or TVs or anything for them to relax in front of, so they're all going down the pub. But I liked sort of the innkeeper or the landlord, whatever you want to call him, and then one of the patrons, right? They have they basically repeat each other's dialogue, right? And I liked that sort of dynamic. I'm not saying their characters were amazing or anything like that, but I just like that there are those people out there, just random. Sometimes you just bump into them in your local pub or whatever, and they're just chat nonsense, the same nonsense. It's like hearing an echo or whatever. And there was just those little elements of those sort of things that sort of just really sort of built the sort of world and really sort of brought me into what Martin McDonagh created as such. It is a tough one. I can understand why people don't like it, but then on the other hand, I understand why I like it as well. And to say I wouldn't go to cinema again doesn't mean I wouldn't watch it again. I probably would watch it again, but it's more of, oh, am I in the mood for that? Yeah, if you know what I mean.
For what it's worth, it does have some laugh out loud moments for me personally. I'm quite easy to make laugh, to be fair, but like there's a lot of bits in it where like the writing's really smart and also like, it's quite off the wall and pretty weird. Like, but as Kieran says, it does build up a good atmosphere. But the problem is like there's those moments where it makes you crease and it makes you laugh, and then there'll be moments where 10, 15 minutes will go by and you're always just like, is there? But like, I feel like it retreaded same ground, and it was the same. There was the character hadn't changed too much, or between too many scenes.
But I think that was the point though for Colin Farrell, was that he didn't.
Doesn't stop it being boring though, does it? That I'm not dull. Like I understand that, but at the same time, it was just there was times where literally I don't really did it, so I weren't looking at my phone because God forbid you can't look at your phone and somehow I think you get shot. But I was looking at my watch, and ironically enough, Kieran came down for the weekend, and we was meeting him at a meal, and turns out, not to throw him under the bus, but he was late anyway. But
I had a reason for being late, because I've been working all morning, you bitch.
Oh, shut up, you funny. But so I was looking at my watch thinking, I bet you it's like 2:30 because we had to be at the meal for 3:00, and it was actually like 1:50, but it just felt like it'd been on forever. If like I don't know, it's the other thing is like you do this with actors, and you do it with directors in particular, where you look at their filmography and like laterally in life when you judge something of what like your preconceived ideas are of what his new thing's going to be like by his old stuff or her old stuff, their work, whether it be games or whether it be like, I don't know, God of War comes out tomorrow, so I'm excited for that. You're hyped up for that mainly because how good the sequel was. Like, do you know what I mean? That's how it works. How good the previous one was. Sorry.
Yeah, the prequel, not the sequel. Yeah.
Well, you one previous year, but with this, that was the same. So like, I really like In Bruges. I'd say, I was saying this to the boys after when we was eating. Three Billboards Outside Missouri is probably one of my favourite dramatic films ever done. It's like great. I'm pretty sure Martin done Seven Psychopaths as well.
You mean Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing?
Yeah, Ebbing, Missouri.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, sorry about it, big balls. He's on it today. Oh, this is how you say it. Oh, you got it wrong. Fucking. Someone weren't like, I haven't had enough sleep. But that's a great dramatic film. And so Seven Psychopaths. Seven Psychopaths is mental. That's like, it's a really like tidy, but also chaotic film. So look, just leading into it, you think, oh, the pacing's going to be great. It's going to be really snappy dialogue, and it does have really good snappy dialogue. But the pacing is like a dead snail. It's like, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to use pacing to be like
a dead snail now.
to be a Billy Big Balls and trying to be like, you know, pretentious. It is just, there's just some laugh out loud moments, and then it's boring for 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, there was three. I kept saying there was three laugh out moments, but I can literally only think of two.
For what it's worth, on the scale I made up the other week or the other month, and I said, go out and see the cinema twice, go out and see it in the cinema, watch it on streaming, and watch it on TV or whatever. For what it's worth, it's produced by Film 4, so it'll be on Film 4 in like a matter of like 6 months.
Yeah,
And watch it on Film 4.
so it is sort of one of those films that, you know, during the week it'll be on at maybe. Actually, because of the nudity and stuff, it probably wouldn't be on until after 9 p.m. anyway. But it probably won't be the 9 p.m. showing because the 9 p.m. tends to be more of a popular thing. So it'll probably be the thing that's on after the 9 p.m., which will probably be what, like 10:45 or 11 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's like that sort of that late one on Film 4. You know, that's the slot I expect it to go into. But I mean, I'm ready to jump into some spoilers because, to be fair, the spoilers are what make the film more interesting.
For one of them, mate, for like getting to positives just before we go in, like, because I sound really dour on it, but there is
Very
good
down.
performances. It really is. I think it really captures part of the comedy element of it. If you ask me, is how bleak and depressing the island is, and how it captures the atmosphere. How there's fuck all to do.
Yeah.
Everyone's having a bad time.
I mean, Ireland looks beautiful.
Relying to each other. Well, that is what is quite good about it as well. Is there's some beautiful like landscape shots and like just cute animals as well.
The acting is superb as well.
Acting is done great.
Yeah. I mean, as much as you've shat on the script, the actual acting side of things was actually really good.
Oh yeah, 100%. But also, that's what I mean about the script. The script is. I say all this for a while. I've wrote like 2 scripts in my life. Like, I think 3 maybe. But it is hard. Don't get me wrong. And, you know, as I say, Martin's wrote some incredible ones, but there's some really good bits in it. But also, like, as I say, there's some down bits in it. A lot of down bits. Down time, shall we say? Not down bits, just down time where you can probably just go for your piss.
Yeah.
You've been needing a loo. You can just go to the loo then.
But yeah, okay, spoilers.
Yeah, so spoilers for it now then.
Yeah. So my favourite bit, which almost made me cry with laughter, was when so Brendan Gleeson's character has got this sort of protege musician on the island of Inisherin, right? And Colin Farrell's really jealous, and so what he does is he decides to um, sort of he's on his horse and cart, and he decides to pick up um, this protege along the path, and puts and yeah, and gets him onto the cart, like, and he's just walking with him, and then he starts talking to him, and he goes, "You're not like the musician, are you? I've got a telegram to give to you," and he says basically that your mother's gravely ill and you need to return to the mainland. And he's like, "Oh, that can't be true because my mother's been dead." And he's like, "Oh, sorry, did I mean your mother? I meant your auntie, about your dad. He's really ill." And he was like, "What? Really?" He goes, "Yeah, he's on his deathbed. He's really ill. He's," and he's like, "Oh, what happened to him?" He goes, "He was hit by a bread van." And he goes, "Oh, bread vans, like it's really common. You know that people get hit by bread vans all the time, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I know. That's how my fucking mom died." Right? Right? And then that makes you start laughing, um, given how morbid the situation is. And then it's the dialogue he has after, and he goes, "Or if it's the same fucking bread van, I'll fucking kill him." It was just delivered so well. I was absolutely in tears laughing at that. I thought it was brilliant.
So this is what I mean. Like that is brilliant. That bit, like like any normal person, made me crease. I was laughing at that. Another bit in like the post office. When he's in the post office, they're like, in typical fashion, small time post office in a village. The woman's really nosy, who runs it, and she's obsessed with gossip and news.
Mm.
So she asks Colin Farrell, "You got any news?" And he's just like, "No, ain't got any news." And she's disappointed by that because you're crap or whatever. Then the policeman comes up and he had like, "Oh, this bloke died when he killed himself, went in the lake." And she like, talks about that too. And then the really little one, it's literally just a lot. It's 2 or 3 lines. This boy got stabbed 6 times. And then he says to the copper, "Oh, is he still alive?" And he says, "You didn't get stabbed with a fucking spoon, so now he's dead." So I can remember that clearly, really clearly, and it's gold.
Wasn't
So
stabbed
that
with a
he
fucking.
didn't get fucking stabbed with a spoon, did he now? Did he now? So, and then when Colin kicks off in the pub when he's had a few whiskies, for for what it's worth as well, is to get onto a positive, and Kieran mentioned it about the pub landlord and his mate.
Mm.
Every scene in the pub is pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Because quite a pivotal scene.
because something's about to change. There's always like a twist or a turn that always happens in the pub, isn't there? It's like that's gonna be the catalyst for the next sort of 15 minutes of the film.
Yeah, exactly. So, and also, speaking of positives and really good scenes which happen in the pub, like the lady who plays Colin Farrell's sister
Yeah,
is
she's
absolutely
really
great.
good. Yeah.
She's really good, and her character makes so much sense. Like her character's decisions is probably the one who makes the most narrative sense, and
Yeah.
also it makes she's really compelling in what she does. In a way, she stands by her brother for as much as she can. And then, like I said, and like we said, just is how dull he is, and he just refuses to change. She just has a tit for, and she's had like an opportunity to go to the mainland and work in the library because she's quite smart and she's got something about herself. So she just fuck off, like
Mm.
she just goes, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
But the scene where she's calming him down after he's had a few bevies and kicks off with Brendan Gleeson, that's gold. And Brendan Gleeson, when he turns around and says, "That's the most interesting you've been, and maybe I'll talk to you now,"
Yeah.
that's great. But the old chopping your fingers off, that was funny at first. But
Well, I enjoyed that actually because you're like, well, he's never going to chop his finger off, is he? Right. So basically, Brendan Gleeson threatens Colin Farrell, saying, "If you ever talk to me again, I'll chop my fingers off and I'll give them to you so you can keep them." Right. But like chop a finger off at a time for each, um, breach as such. and you're like, oh, he's not really gonna do it, you know. And then he goes and chats to him after that moment where he's been at the pub and has a kick off, and then Brendan Gleeson says that's the most interesting he's ever been. That word gets back to Colin Farrell, and he's like, well, I'll go and see him then, because clearly if I'm more confrontational with him, he'll enjoy it. So he went to go see him, really confrontational. They actually have a decent chat. He goes, Colin Farrell goes home. Next thing you know, he hears a thud at the door. Right, he opens the door. There's a fucking finger on the floor. Right, and you're like, holy shit! He actually chopped off his finger.
And he just eats it, doesn't he? He just throws it. He just throws his like, fat finger.
Yeah, and you kind of like, oh, like that's a bit dark, but you know, he's made his point. Colin Farrell should clearly understand, like, shit, I don't want him to talk to me. Doesn't want me to talk to him anymore. Whatever. But then because of how dull and how sort of simple Colin Farrell's character is, he finds ways to, you know, try to attempt to reconnect with him, to the point that Brendan Gleeson eventually chops off all the fingers on his thumb, like on his one hand, right, and they're all lobbed at the door, and it's like you didn't expect him to cut off one, but when he did, you're like, oh, he's making his point, right? But that's it, you know. He's not gonna chop it off again and again and again, you know, right? And the next thing you know, there's just like a load of fingers just being lobbed at his front door.
And it's really established that, and you can understand Brendan Gleeson's point that he's had a tipful of just chatting shit. He wants to do something, and he's like an aspiring musician, so he wants to just not chat shit all the time with Colin Farrell, and to the point where, yeah, funny enough, not like they'd use the phrase "chat shit" in 1923, but they do actually talk about shit at one point. Brendan Gleeson points out, he says, "I've had enough of just sitting here and chatting." Well, we spoke about your donkey shit for 2 hours, so.
Yeah, and he says, well, it's actually a pony. Shows how much you were listening.
I think, in real life, you'd just be, I don't want to hang out as much, but yeah, also that just wouldn't be like an even less interesting film, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
I say I liked the concept of it. I liked what it tried to do, and I did enjoy the majority of it.
But one of my favourite bits with the surreal, like visceral, like quite weird comedy is, like you said, he's chopped off all the fingers and he's thumb on one of his hands. And I would say he's an aspiring musician. He's trying to take that more serious. And in the pub, as opposed to like playing, all he can do is like semi-conduct.
Yeah.
He's just shaking his fiddle. He's just shaking his fiddle, like, not even angrily, but it looks demented because he's got no fingers and he looks quite in pain when he's doing it.
Yeah. Because, I mean, no anaesthetic back then, mate.
No, just more whiskey and Jamesons.
Yeah. But then it gets more sinister because basically his donkey or pony, Jenny, is killed because she eats the fingers. Yeah, she chokes, but you know, human flesh or whatever, she gets poisoned and whatever from the finger, so she dies. Then Colin Farrell and his sister's left to go to the mainland, so he's all on his own now. And he's like, my best friend's left me, and he's lobbing his fingers at me. He's killed my donkey, and now my sister's left me, and oh, woe is me. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna burn your fucking house down.
Yeah.
And guess what? He burns his house down.
He doesn't actually burn his house down. And to the point where he says to him, and even gives him fair warning, he says, tomorrow after church, I'll burn your house down. And I don't care whether you're in it or not, but as long as your dog's not in it, I don't care. And he sets it up to burn it down. He clocks that Brendan Gleeson's in it, and he just carries on. And again, spoilers, but you're this far. He's there at the end. And I think the final words are, this is just the beginning. I'm going to torment you. You killed my donkey, Jenny. And I love that donkey. And it'll be a really bad film, a lot worse than it could ever be. If, like we said, how good the performance is. Colin Farrell's performance when that donkey dies is great.
Yeah.
You do feel gutted for him. You feel deadly upset. And you can see why you'd be even more upset, like Kieran's pointed out, he's on his Todd, he's got nobody. And then he's the only person who's got is his donkey, and his donkey dies.
Yeah. I say it's just I liked how the progression sort of went there. As you said, the pacing and stuff of the film, it was quite slow to reach these sort of points, but it's also trying to show how mundane life is through its storytelling. But the sort of rise to sort of I don't know what's it called when you're a fire anarchist or something, pyromaniac or whatever. But that rise to that sort of like that, he's just a dull, lively fella that likes to go down the pub every night after work. To all of a sudden everything's left him and everything's shit and he's burning your house down, and it's a big change. Like it's quite, it's nice. That's what I enjoyed, because things happened I didn't expect to happen. Even though they told you that's what they were going to do, you were like, well, through the characterization that I've witnessed in my time with this film, I don't think they're going to go to that extreme, and then they do. So that was nice. That was enjoyable. But the thing I didn't like, and I don't understand why, is they just killed off Barry Keoghan's character. He just drowned in a lake. Like, I don't what. I don't know if he drown himself because Colin Farrell's sister said no to his advancements, or did he just slip and fall and yeah, that's just life, or it was because it was off screen as well, so it was just mentioned. Nothing really. It was mentioned in a letter to his sister, wasn't it?
It was mentioned in a letter to when Colin Farrell was writing his letter to his sister. My point with that, and Jimmy brought up some good points, and when I was talking to Jimmy and Dan after the cinema, is so there's this old creepy lady throughout the film who's meant quote unquote friends with Colin Farrell's sister, but she doesn't really want to be friends with her, and she dodges her because she's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
But when he asks Colin Farrell's sister out, she calls him over. She does that over to the lake. And Jimmy, I can't remember if it was Jimmy or Dan to their credit, is that maybe the creepy old lady or witch woman or whatever not so much persuaded him, but egged him to kill himself, or even I don't know, use magic witchcraft. But it's not defined that she has magic, but she's definitely creepy.
Yeah, she seems manipulative as such. I mean, there is some sort of grounding, some foot into that sort of speculation as such. It's not totally unplausible, but yeah.
But it should not have been off screen.
No.
I can understand why he died. He was having a bad time. He really had a tit for, let's face it. He had nothing going for him. His dad was beating fuck out of him. Never had any jobs prospects. He was alone. I'm not saying this is not an advocate for you to go kill yourself. You've got those things, but it's the way it pictured him. It was terrible. But it was also
he was in a bad life even for 1923.
Because he was a dipshit, bless him. It was very plausible he could have just slipped anyway.
He was mentally challenged. He wasn't a dipshit. Can't say that.
No, I think also again, we was discussing after, saying just because a film's quite slow doesn't mean Jimmy says it doesn't mean I won't like it. And on one of Jamie's favourite films, and we ripped into him when we watched it at uni, was a film called The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. I don't know if you've watched that. Have you watched that?
Yeah, it's Brad Pitt.
And Casey Affleck.
Yeah.
Good film. And that again, that's quite slow. But just because the film's slow doesn't mean it's going to be bad.
No.
But again, it's up to interpretation whether you think this one's bad or not.
Yeah, it's not like a slam dunk, it's shit or it's good. It's got some really good elements and some not bad elements, just boring elements. But it depends on how you enjoy films and how your sort of genre of what you enjoy. It's right, as I said, it's not the best and it's not the worst. It's right in the middle, so it's very person specific if you're gonna enjoy it or not.
Yeah, too right. And like I said, I'd recommend you watching it but I wouldn't go out your way too much. But I wouldn't rent it on YouTube or.
Yeah, I think it's worth a watch if you can get a hold of it, but don't spend your life savings on it.
But
Yeah.
that's our thoughts on that to tie that up. But as for like as usual, our moments of the week and things we'd recommend
Yeah.
or whatever. My one is, I don't know whether Kieran's going to say the same thing or whatever, but like there's had a few friends around this weekend, and we ended up, like you do, you community watch something you'd hope you'd all like, and like typically, if it's friends around, it's not usually like something deep. You can watch good drama. We usually like to have a bit of a laugh if you've got your friends around. So we watched something called The Rehearsal, which is a Nathan Fielder thing. And Nathan's also done his TV show prior to this was Nathan For You. And his speciality, and he absolutely smashes it, is being incredibly deadpan, like the straight man, with weird situations in real life.
Yeah, because he puts on a facade. He creates a character for his television appearance. So he's not actually truly him. He's creating this sort of monotone, mundane person.
Yeah, exactly. So Nathan For You was great and weird. The premise of that was, I'll help small-time businesses grow and by giving them mad situations. So an example of that was this small-time petrol garage in America, which was in the arsehole and they were on a desert with some mountains. So they were struggling to get custom. So they said to the customers, you can get a tax rebate on some of your fuel, but you've got to physically go pick up this tax rebate form, which was on the top of this mountain. And they walk for like a day and a half to go. Some people do. And this is real life, like they do it. And it's so weird. And like, there's loads of mad schemes like that he does. And he's just putting people in awkward situations. And it's just really funny and weird. Where this new series is it's called The Rehearsal. And the premise for that is
everything's rehearsed.
Everything down to
and
the
when
T.
You think it's not rehearsed, it is.
Yeah, everything down to the T is rehearsed. So the first one is quite tame for the rest of the season. Is this chap who's on a pub quiz team, like a trivia quiz team, and he says to his teammates and his friend in particular that, God forbid, he's only got a bachelor's degree as opposed to a master's in whatever qualification it was.
I think it was mathematics, I think.
Yeah, it was something like that. So he says, I want to break it to my friend about this. So Nathan says, okay, we rehearse it. So as opposed to just having a conversation in his living room about it, like how the TV show goes on, all 6 episodes, nothing is done by halves. And by that I mean, there's a pub where they did a trivia show, and he reenacts and makes this pub, like constructs this pub in a warehouse down to the minute detail. It's like production design is unreal. It might as well be production design off Game of Thrones or one of the Nolan films. It's incredible. And the details, just so this guy can chat to an actor who's meant to be his friend, and this actor's met his friend to try and suss out what type of person she is, so she can portray her well.
Yeah, get to know her mannerisms and her speech patterns and things like that. It's very Black Mirror-esque.
It is, and that's just the first episode. Then the second gets into, and the rest of the season has loads of. It almost reminds me, like you say, Black Mirror-esque, but it almost reminds me to a degree of Inception, because there's so many rehearsals within rehearsals, especially. I think it's the 3rd episode where he's training actors for his rehearsals.
And then he becomes one of his actors to understand if he is teaching correctly. So an actor has to take on his role to copy his mannerisms, but then he takes on an actor's role to see if it's being taught correctly. But then he doesn't think that's working. So what he does is he gets his classmates to, well, his students, so to say, to go out in the real world, find some random person, basically stalk them, learn their mannerisms, their speech patterns, their etiquettes, what they do, right, and try and live like them as such, to the point that he says to him, you know, I want you to get a job doing what they do, and I want you to, you know, oh, they live in a house share with 3 other people, so you need to now live in a house share with 3 other people. And then Nathan, so when the actor goes off to live in this house share, Nathan then goes to move into the actor's house because he's pretending to be him, right? To try and understand him and understand. There's so many levels. It's so fucked up. Like, if you,
there's so many levels, and also that's not. Yeah. I wouldn't want to spoil it because it only gets weirder from then on. But what I will say is, if you like the first episode, it only gets better and weirder, and you will love it. So if you like awkward comedy and you think, like, if you like sitting on your settee and like cringing to yourself, that there's nothing better than this show.
No,
in that sense,
it's
absolutely great.
It's very different to anything else out there.
Yeah, it's very different, and I think so. The second episode has got this great, like, it's slightly unhinged woman who's very opinionated.
Understatement. The first time we saw her, I literally went, she's going to be high maintenance. Well, understatement of the century.
So, pun intended, the first rehearsal in the first episode is very trivial. And then they go from a very trivial, like, situation and problem to probably one of the biggest decisions you make in your life, possibly. Well, it is, let's face it. Is this woman is undecided whether she should have children or not.
At 44.
At 44, yeah. So they make a house for her. Her dream house, by the way, is a self-sustaining house on its own. So she's like, in the middle she's not even a stay. It's not, the situation's not even that she's a stay-at-home mom, because as like, not getting spoilers, they also include that into it. But as you imagine, like all the other rehearsals, you need actors for it. So because of acting trade laws, and as a lot of people know, they switch out. Oh yeah, the TikTok bit. That made me crease. Me and Charlotte were talking about that yesterday. But because of their child actors, you have to switch them out for every 4 hours. So they've got these kid actors, and he switched them out every now and again. And then, because the show doesn't want to last 18 years, and it's not Boyhood, like, they increase the age of the kids every, like, 2 days. So one minute it's a baby, then, like, a couple of days later, it's a toddler. Then it's
a new actor,
Then it's a new actor, and it's 8 years old. Then it's a teenager, and so on. All of them are on Now TV, and I honestly recommend anybody to watch the first episode, and if you like it, you're going to fucking love it. It's so weird. It's nothing like the only thing I've ever watched similar to it was Nathan For You, but Nathan For You was probably funnier, but this is more mindfuckery.
Yeah. And so, like, if you enjoy Black Mirror, yeah, you enjoy this. But the bit, I won't fully spoiler it, but the bit that I'm absolutely creasing at in the background here is basically Nathan disappears for a bit, and then he comes back, the kid's like 18 years old, right? And then he says to the kid, I don't know, how do I say this? Basically, the kid starts to then act up because his dad's been away for 9 years in their world, right? And he's pretending to be on drugs and stuff like that. And then he's like pretending to OD. And then there's a cut back. So basically, he's ODing in his bedroom. Nathan's there trying to like call the ambulance. And you cut back to this woman, this unhinged woman that we've mentioned, who wants, you know, this whole experience is for her to see if she wants to raise a kid. And she's just in her bedroom doing like the fucking hey, you know, the ketchup song or whatever. I can't remember how the ketchup song goes. But basically, she's doing all that little dancing, and all you hear is Angela, you get an ambulance, and she's like la 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 la.
It was a creasing, like, it was all absolutely creasing then. I'd say it's if
And there are some like strong themes, especially with that one kid that gets a bit too attached.
oh yeah, that's
It's
I
like
don't want to
heartbreaking.
spoil that. I don't want to spoil that whatever at all. But the most surreal and fucked up bit is probably the last episode, which Kieran just referred to. Oh, it's not a dramatic TV show. You know, it's not a crime drama. It's not whatever. But I'd probably say, even though I literally watched it 2 days ago, if I can probably like read into the future. If you just ask me at the end of the year what TV show I'd probably remember most this year, that'll probably be on the list.
Yeah.
Whether it's because I'm being biased because I had a really good time watching it because
Or
for the first half,
boys.
I watched it with all the boys, and for the first half of the show, like the first 3-4 episodes, I was drunk as well. I was having a good laugh, but it is really fucking weird and really good.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't know, because I really liked how it flowed, and it flowed really weird because it was like one situation that you think it's not being rehearsed and it's being rehearsed or whatever. But at the same time, I really like that, but part of me thinks, could have they done more different rehearsals, different scenarios? But I thought it was near great, and it's right, it was like near perfect anyway.
Mm.
Have you got a different moment? I don't want to spoil it too much either, because I honestly can't recommend it enough. Because just watch the first episode, and if you don't like the first episode, you won't watch the rest of it, because a very similar tone, it just gets more mental.
Yeah.
But
I think you'll have a better time if you watch it with other people, because then you can create conversation about it.
yeah, definitely.
But no, yes, it wasn't actually going to be my moment of the week, but I'll lean on it, to be honest, because it's a better moment of the week than the one I was going to say.
But as I say, as Kieran's just rightly so mentioned, I think one of the reasons I creased about it a lot and I really liked it was as it was happening, we was discussing it as I think it was the four of us were watching it.
Yeah.
And we was creasing. But it is just so surreal and messed up in such a good way. Like, don't get me wrong, that's to its positive, not a negative.
Yeah.
I'm just really looking forward to what, like I said when we were watching it, what he does next, because it's a HBO thing, and by that I mean you can see, and whether it be the production designs or the amount of actors which are involved in it, the budget they put into it.
Yeah.
You know, don't get me wrong, it's not like you mentioned the other week, Lord of the Rings or the Game of Thrones HBO budget, but it's still quite a lot. And the jump from Nathan For You to this, like his endorsement and budget wise, I hope he just keeps doing well, because it is gold.
Yeah.
Did you watch all of Nathan For You, or did you just watch bits of it?
I haven't watched any of it. I only watched what you've shown me.
Is it? Oh, you'll have to, you yourself, you'll have to go back and watch all of Nathan For You as well. I think it might be on Now TV, I don't know.
Yeah. I'll have to give it a look, see. I'll put it on the list. There is no list.
This week's episode. Thank you as always for listening. It's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and we will catch you in the next one. The next one will probably be quite a controversial one, because it's going to be on Gotham Knights.
Yeah, it will be on Gotham Knights, and I have very much mixed emotions about Gotham Knights.
Yeah, but as I alluded to last episode, I think, it's not as bad as everyone makes it seem. It's enjoyable.
It is enjoyable.
But we will leave you with that.
We'll leave you with that. And thank you, as always. If you can share it, listen to it on YouTube, comment, give it some likes, play the game, help a brother out. But thank you very much. Have a good time.
Yep, and we will see you later.
Bye.
Bye.